So Megan, you're based in Ghana right now in West Africa. Tell me just briefly, what did the Corona crisis bring to your attention again?
The really, I think the lack of safety nets for SMEs in West Africa, across West Africa. While we look in Europe and the US to our government to replace salaries for small business owners, that's not going to happen on any large scale in economies where over 90% of workers are SMEs, are informal. And so, how do you take the mitigation methods of staying at home when the only way you get income into your household is by going out? And so, what it really brought home to me is we need to help our SMEs be more resilient and build up wealth and a safety net for them during good times so that we have it when crises like this occur.
And in West Africa, we have a population that is where a huge amount of young people are living in West Africa right now. Millions of them entering the job market very soon. What do you think is the most promising lever to kind of generate jobs for them?
I believe that we have to turn every sole proprietor into a job creator. We've focused a lot on entrepreneurship and trying to make every youth an entrepreneur, but not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone should have to be an entrepreneur if they don't want to. So we have these businesses that have figured out how to operate, how to survive. Now let's use financial tools and data and information to lever them up so that they can now take what they're already doing, expand it, and create jobs.
And in a nutshell, what does the company OZÉ that you founded in Ghana is all about?
So OZÉ is a platform that makes it simple and habit forming for small business owners to keep financial records. And then once we have all that data, it enables us to provide other services and information. So we provide analytics, reports, recommendations, coaching, and also we use machine learning and our alternative data to predict credit risk. So we can connect these companies to bank capital that they've never had access to before.
Exactly the thing that you have just described, like how do business coaching and financing work together on your platform?
I think that, digital finance has been really exciting, especially in markets that didn't have a robust banking sector. But unfortunately, credit becoming too easy, and we've seen this play out in other markets, maybe it gets cash in your pocket in the short term, but it doesn't lead to long-term success in your business. So we think about the business as a bucket, and many of the businesses that we see, they're very leaky buckets. So they're putting, water money in, and they're hoping that they're getting retained earnings, but so much of it is leaking out. And oftentimes more is leaking out than they're actually putting in. So they're ending up with an empty bucket. And so the way that coaching and financing go hand in hand is the coaching patches up the holes before we pour the water in, so that when you put credit into the business, it doesn't just trap you in this cycle of trying to pay back loans, but actually leads to a different capital structure of your business and retained earnings, wealth, and growth.
But it's also beneficial for the people who lend actually money, right?
Yeah, we're expanding the size of the market to them. If you can't lend to SMEs, you have you're fighting with all of the other banks to lend to this small group of established companies. So the banks really have to learn how to lend to these types of businesses.
It's amazing. Which advantages do young entrepreneurs in Ghana, or maybe let's say in West Africa, have?
So I think one is, sorry, I'm going to turn off my notifications because I hear them beeping. I think, there's a lot of advantages. Of course, we always teach our entrepreneurs that frustrations are opportunities for businesses. So anywhere where you see something that could work better, be better, serve needs better, you as an entrepreneur can step in and solve that problem. So as an entrepreneur, it's kind of like the world is your oyster in West Africa. Obviously, there are a lot of operating complexities, so you need help trying to figure out how to work through those. But if you can figure out how to make your business work, you actually have massive business opportunities.
I'm curious, what was for you the moment to realize that actually moving and setting up a company in West Africa is your way to to kind of go?
So it was reverse order. So I was already working in West Africa. I founded a business accelerator in Guinea called Dare to Innovate. That was both incredibly difficult to run sustainably and demonstrating a lot of progress. And so I said, okay, everyone's looking at me for the answers, and I don't have them. I don't know how to, reliably help unemployed young people start businesses that can go and employ their peers. And so I actually went to graduate school knowing that my goal was to move back to West Africa upon graduation. And it was through the support of my mentors and my professors and the amazing students in my class that we actually figured out, that OZÉ as a fintech platform was much more scalable than the high touch nature of accelerators. And that if you could give a tool like OZÉ to every one of these accelerators, as well as every other, private or public organization that's supporting small businesses, then that's how we could actually get the scale of impact that we need to create jobs for Africa's 11 million youth who are joining the job market each year.
Please continue the sentence. Talking to business and finance partners in developed countries about engaging in West Africa.
It's interesting. Times are changing. So when I first started trying to raise capital to expand OZÉ, I think it doesn't help being a young woman either. I would get a lot of, oh honey, we're not looking to invest in charities. I'm not a charity. We believe, like me, my team, those of us working in this space, that if you are helping create wealth for others, you can use private capital and you can share in the upside that you're helping to create. People are starting to get excited about investing in Africa. You see each year like the number of venture firms doubling on the continent. It's still incredibly hard because, in more developed markets, you can say, oh, we're like Airbnb, but for this, we're like Uber, but for this. But a lot of the business models aren't proven yet in West Africa. We haven't seen a lot of successful exits. So, we have a freemium subscription because we want businesses to be able to benefit from OZÉ before they have to start paying for it. And a lot of investors said, that's interesting, but we've never seen freemium work in West Africa. And so trying to, create business models while you're creating products, while you're trying to create new operational processes, there's a lot of risk and not everyone is willing to invest in that risk.
And what would you say is a misconception that people have about female entrepreneurs?
I think one is that we're all alike and that we typically, are mostly interested in solving problems for other women. I love the women that we support. I am, very excited about a lot of the female-run businesses that are running their finances on OZÉ, but I'm, more excited about creating new financial instruments than I am about some things that people might typically associate with what women want to start companies in. So I think, we're all very different. But one thing that does unite us statistically is that we'll give you better returns. So invest in women.
That's true. What's the best advice that you've ever received in your life?
I think it's to solve problems and not fall in love with your solution, because time now more than ever we've seen how times can change under you, and that what you thought might work as your solution isn't going to work in this new reality, or maybe just was never going to work. And waking up every morning and saying, I want businesses to reliably be able to use these tools to grow, and I want to do everything that I can to make sure that happens. That helps you kind of get through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, rather than putting all of your eggs in the basket of this is the solution. And, if I have a good week, then the solution is great. And if I have a bad week, then the solution is bad. We have to really keep our eyes on the problem and solving the problem with our customers.
And could you describe yourself in 3 words?
I would say curious, fun-loving, and collaborative.
That's nice. And which woman is a role model to you? And I would also love to know why.
Sure. Even though I didn't have the chance to know her very well, I look up to my grandmother, who worked in an era where many women didn't have jobs, didn't work out of the house. And she was a sportswear buyer for department stores in New York. So you think about, back during World War II era, this young woman, child of immigrants, like going out and just chasing down her dreams and having a career. I think I I'm inspired by women who don't take the traditional path and do what they want to do and do what fulfills them. And so I'm inspired by her.
That's wonderful. What is one thing that people don't know about your career?
Ooh. I think, people don't realize that I worked in small businesses for so long. I started working at 15 in retail at a small jewelry store, and I worked for years as a waitress. And so, you know, I think people think that I'm a white collar worker because I went to fancy schools and worked as a consultant, but you know, I've probably spent more years working on my feet in the service industry than I have working behind a desk. And I think without that, you can never build empathy for what it means to be a tipped worker, and for what it means to do work that's not just mentally but physically taxing. And it makes it much easier for me to really understand how to help our customers, and to just, sometimes you need to commiserate, and to be able to say, I've been there, I've done that, and let's, help your business be able to be stronger.
I totally hear you. What is the biggest surprise so far that you experienced in your career?
I actually, what I'm doing is the biggest surprise, I would say, because I I I worked for a consultant firm called Monitor Group, and they allowed me to defer my job offer to go join the Peace Corps. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the Peace Corps for 2 years and just like learn about emerging markets, and then come home and work for Monitor, and become a partner and just be a consultant for my whole life. And two things happened. One, I started Dare to Innovate, the accelerator, and just couldn't give up on solving the issues for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And two, Monitor got bought by Deloitte, so the company didn't exist by the time I came home from the Peace Corps. So I did work for Deloitte for 3 years, but not this long career I thought I would have as a consultant.
And you as an entrepreneur, and I know that's really kind of hard, and sometimes it really feels lonely as an entrepreneur. What is your support system made of?
I think, I'm very lucky that schools like MIT are very entrepreneurial. And I was in fellowships and programs and grad schools, actually at both institutes, MIT and Harvard, for people starting companies in emerging markets, and for people starting for-profits and nonprofits with social impact. And because of that, I have this wonderful support system of other entrepreneurs around the world who are trying to, approach business with the same moral compass that I have, or approach business in the same markets that I'm working in. And so because we're so dispersed, no matter what time of the day it is, somebody's up, and you can talk to somebody for support or for, tactical guidance.
That's really amazing. Like having an international support system, that's really, wow, a gem.
Yes, I feel very, very lucky. I learned a lot from my professors, but I learned so much also from my fellow students, especially those who were like me, trying to run companies while studying.
And talking about West Africa, what were maybe the most surprising developments that you have experienced in, let's say, the last 5 years there?
So it's such a diverse, Africa is such a diverse continent, and then West Africa is, there's so much change. Like each country has so many different languages and different government structures and different colonial paths. So it's been most interesting for me to I moved to Guinea, Republic of Guinea, in 2011. and now I live in Ghana, and just seeing the differences between the two countries. So, when I moved to Guinea, there was no 3G. I didn't have a smartphone. They call it a yam in Ghana. I call it a dumb phone. But to have seen the transition from, just using that dumb phone through to now in Guinea, there's an orange tower next to the hut that I lived in when I lived there, and I can go on Instagram from, bed, to Ghana, where I'm seeing not just the emergence of, technology infrastructure, but really a middle class that's demanding niche services and niche products. And knowing that Guinea trails behind Ghana in terms of socioeconomic development, and seeing, being able to kind of glimpse into the future in Ghana, what it potentially could look like for Guinea. So 5 years ago, Ghana was probably still had a bit more access to technology and tools and services than Guinea even has today. And so it's hard to say over 5 years, what's changed, because it's so different in every country.
Okay, so my next question would actually be, what do you wish to kind of see happen and change in the next kind of 5 years for West Africa or Ghana in particular?
Yeah, I would say I really want to see more female entrepreneurs get the support that they need to be able to start their business, and be able to scale their business. In Ghana, actually, women small business owners are more likely than male small business owners to be employers. It's one of the rare countries in the world where that's the case. And yet women still have a harder time getting access to credit. They have a harder time getting access to equity investments. They have a harder time getting access to pretty much no matter what it is. And so I want us to start recognizing, not just the role that women play in our homes and our communities, but in our economy as well. And give them the resources that we need to really build them up, because they're the secret to having strong economic development.
Can you tell us why the different ratio is in Ghana?
I have actually no idea. It's an ILO report that has, all sorts of stats on the informal economy. And I don't know what it is about Ghana that has more women than men employing others, because I've met amazing women in every country. So I don't think it's anything different about Ghanaian women. It would be something interesting to try to figure out, is it maybe, this is pure hypothesis, but Ghana has historically had a stronger school system. So maybe women are getting more education, but there's still gender discrimination in the workforce, for example. Or I've seen, some of our strongest entrepreneurs on our platform actually did have corporate careers in banking, or fast moving, like Unilever, Nestle, those kinds of companies. But they didn't get the flexibility that they needed in those companies to fulfill the societal role of mothers, but they have all of this like knowledge and experience. And so when they start businesses, they're likely to employ people. I'm not sure what it is, but it's something that we see in the stats.
It's very fascinating. What does sustainability mean to you?
My knee-jerk reaction is always to go to financial sustainability. If you're doing any initiative, even if it's for commercial gain or social gain, does it generate enough income for you to keep doing it? And if not, you're going to have to find a new model. I think over the past couple of years, environmental sustainability has become a stronger part of my life. When you change your life from turning on the tap to get water to having to actually pull that water out of the ground and then find a new well when your well's dry, and then find a new well when that well's dry, you realize, how closely related we are and how reliant we are on the environment. And so I think sustainability for me is whatever you're taking out of the economy or the world or nature, what's coming back in is more than what you took out.
And what does sustainability mean to people in West Africa?
I think, the first people to feel the effects of climate change are farmers. Mm-hmm. And if you look in West Africa, the majority of the population our farmers. And so I think sustainability to them means taking the steps that they need on their farms so that next year more food comes out of the ground than this year rather than less.
And what is inspiring to you right now?
I'm really inspired by the resilient spirit of the small business owners who are not just kind of folding their arms and saying, you know, this was an act of God. There's nothing that I can do to stop it. There's nothing that I can do to keep my business running through it. I just need to wait it out. And saying, you know, adopting new technology. Like, I know we talk about Zoom going to, what was it, like 100 million users. A lot of those users are in West Africa, and they're people who their only apps on their phone were Facebook and WhatsApp, and they're adapting and they're learning, and they're moving learning online. They're moving community events online, and everyone is so hungry to figure out, you know, who knows how long this is going to last. So how can I make my business adapt to this new reality rather than just hope it changes? And so I've been really excited to see, you know, the different initiatives that our customers have taken in order to get through it and come out stronger.
It sounds a little bit like here in Germany.
Something, you know, the pandemic is global, and we all have this, you know, shared weakness to this virus, but I think we're also seeing like a shared sense of humanity, and that the resilience and the ingenuity and creativity of people is everywhere the virus touches. And so I think too, we need to be open. I was so excited for me to see that a lot of the test kits were coming out of Senegal, because so often we think that the flow has to be from the north to the south. But African countries have so much more experience dealing with infectious disease than we do. You know, there is a lot, not to call out specific countries, but I passed through a European country 4 weeks ago, and I had no temperature check, no hand sanitizer, no health form. I landed in Ghana. There was a fully garbed man waiting for me at the gate, taking my temperature, making me wash my hands, filling out paperwork. And so the muscle memory of how we deal with epidemics or pandemics exists in West Africa, exists across Africa. And DRC was just dealing with Ebola. And so we need to make sure too that we're not only looking to the global north for inspiration, but learning from the experts on the ground in the global south.
Totally. If you wouldn't run OZÉ, what would you be doing instead? Maybe you have already a future plan.
I studied theater and performance studies in college, and really felt that I was going to be a theater director. My first internships were in theater. My first company was a theater production company. So I think if I didn't go down this route, I would probably be living in New York, trying to direct and produce Broadway shows. It's a 180, I know.
No, this is amazing, like completely different.
Yeah, I think I was the only one in my college who was studying finance and theater and performance studies.
That's even, no, seriously, like this is the way to go. Like we need those kind of hybrid minds.
Yeah, one of my professors told me, and I think this shows how much times have changed. This was probably in 2008, gave me feedback that I was unhireable in business because with my theater background, anyone looking to hire me would be afraid that I would, and I quote, run off with the touring production of Grease. I was like, so I think times have changed. I think we're really starting to value people with intersectionality that a decade ago were like, okay, like that's probably your passion and your parents are forcing you to study finance. But I like both, and I use as much from my theater training as I do from my finance training and the business that I do. The innovation process actually can take a lot from the co-creative nature of the performing arts, and you can bring that in, those tactics, into new product development and create things that are really unique.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much, Megan.